I will to step back and let him lead the way. There's tears. I will to surrender control. I will for truth to do whatever truth is going to do. And I'm going to share my experience this morning. And it begins with 4 quotes from step 7. They all come from the Supreme Yoga. And they read, this ocean of world appearance can be crossed only when you are firmly established in supreme wisdom, when you see the self with the self alone, and when your intelligence is not diverted or colored by sense perception. Quote, without delay, one should endeavor to see the self. Quote, contemplate the sole reality of consciousness for the cessation of repeated birth. Taste the pure consciousness, which is in truth the very essence of all that exists. By resolutely renouncing objectivity of consciousness, all the concepts and percepts, and contemplating the changeless consciousness, which is infinite. And quote, know that you are the essence of consciousness. Know that you are the essence of consciousness. I read these quotes. I wrote them down. I sat, and then I went into a diet. It was a gorgeous experience. And what happened during the diet, there was a real sense of fully accepting the teachings and feeling like a separate self and recognizing how insane that was. Do you feel? So everything I do, I spend hours and hours a day in contemplation, meditation, working with others, teaching and sharing that there is only one mind, supreme consciousness, and everything rises and falls in that. And while I'm doing that, I feel a real sense of being a separate self doing that. And then, the world hits and there's contractions. So really sitting in this sense of the insanity of holding those two things at the same time and watching the separate self and try to make that a problem. That was what was going on during the dyadic experience. And so here is what happened afterwards. Okay, wrote it down, the words, okay. And here I am, experiencing the sense of being a me separate, a separate me desiring truth. It still feels insane when I say it out loud, right? And programming, the false self, the imposter self, is still trying to make that a problem. And I'm laughing because the truth is the moment of recognition means that program is weakening. It's no longer center stage. And even if we have to remind ourselves that 1,000 times a day, why not? The moment there is a noticing that there is an energy that is attempting to say what I am is not you. It's not that that's a problem. It's that it's being noticed and not accepted. What is this energy that's noticing it? Okay, and here I am, experiencing the sense of being a me separate, a separate me desiring truth. I will to see the self, the capital S self. What now? Love Poems from God. Man, what a beautiful, beautiful work of art that talks directly. It's the opportunity for whatever God is. And my beloved Joel Goldsmith is teaching me that I am God. Oh, I could say that. because God is everything. So I'm going to say that right here now, right? If God is all there is, God is all there is, then from what perspective am I not that? Interesting contraction, yeah? I'm not going to state what you as that point unconscious, but here it's an interesting statement. If God is the ground of our being, God is infinite divine presence. God is omnipresence. I'm listening to that word a lot, which means always here, always now, everywhere. Then what is it right here, right now, that insists that it's blasphemy to say, I am God? So the part, the channel, the bridge, the part of this current point of viewing seems to speak through love poems from God. So opening the book at random, I look at the right side. The right side of the page wasn't the message. The left side reads, you are sitting in a wagon being drawn by a horse whose reins you hold. There are two inside of you who can steer. There are two inside of you who can steer. Though most never hand the reins to me with a capital M. So they go from place to place, the best they can, though, rarely happy. And rarely does their whole body laugh, feeling God's poke in the ribs. If you feel tired, dear, my shoulder is soft. I'd be glad to steer a while. Confess that this physical form, the body, which is also God, since nothing isn't God, has a chill running through it from the inside out at the moment. If you're getting tired, you can hand the reins to me and rest your head on my soft shoulder. There's tears now. Yes, please. It's okay. You are safe. I am here. You can let go. Life is easy here. Life is easy now. God has the wheel. There was something about the fact that I've been saying some version of that in this feeling of a separate self for weeks or months now. And here are the words that literally say, give God the wheel, give God the reins, right? It's an interesting kind of dynamic. And yet there is still a sense of a separate self here that wants to say, yeah, that's kind of cool. But there's still a me. Look at me. Not there yet. Even know what that means. And so for whom does this sense of a separate self arise? That's what's coming now, right? Because literally that sense that was there when I was writing that is still here. For whom? For whom does this sense of a separate self arise? Where is the one separate from source, who somehow has wrestled control from God? Is that even possible? Where is she? And where, by the way, is the one that wants that? Where is the I who calls herself Cindy, who somehow thinks that this moment is best handled by her separate from God? God, by the way, who she accepts and teaches and shares and contemplates that is omnipresent, which means is everywhere always. Who desires to steer the horses? And then I'm told to read it again. Okay, Sean, I'll give you the reins. Here we go. It says right here, read it again. You are sitting in a wagon being drawn by a horse whose reins you hold. There are two inside of you who can steer. The most never hand the reins to me, so they go from place to place the best they can, though rarely happy. And rarely does their whole body laugh, feeling God's poke in the ribs. You feel tired, dear. My shoulder is soft. I'd be glad to steer a while. So the next question comes now. I opened this at random. I never read those words before in my conscious memory. And so literally I'm watching myself write these words. Who brought those words to you? Where did they come from? I literally been sitting here asking about control. How do I surrender control? There's this sense of a me separate. I'm continually teaching oneness, and yet the sense of a me separate continues to try to take control. And then those words drop. Where did they come from? The ego literally is attempting to push out the question, not more. Where did they come from? Who brought those words to this seemingly separate self? Know that you are the essence of consciousness. You see? Yeah. This next teaching comes directly from the time I'm spending with this, with a program in my head called Joel Goldsmith, who literally I'm listening to him teach in the days, weeks before he died. I don't know the timing, but he's literally he didn't know he was about to drop the body, or maybe he did and he didn't tell anybody. His energy didn't change a hoop, but he's sitting there talking about, he literally said in this teaching, if you write a letter, because that's all they did in 1964, they didn't make a long distance phone call and they certainly didn't have text. If you send a message to your practitioner or your teacher that you need healing help, and your practitioner dies before he physically gets the message, and you're healed anyway, it's because you're not sending the message to a physical form. You're sending the message to consciousness in the channel of what you currently still deem as a separate form, because you're still holding on to some belief of a separate self, but it ain't the separate self that's doing the healing. How could it be, since the healing happens in the moment of the request? And he goes on to say that the physical form doesn't matter. When you connect to Jesus today, it's the same as if you were connecting to Jesus 2,000 years ago. It has nothing to do with physical form. It has everything to do with pure consciousness. And if there's a belief here that says that Jesus can reach me now, how does that even make sense? It's just that that kind of verb or statement is the way that you poke a hole in the human whose breath is in his nostrils, again, to use Joel's speak. And he says, the human whose breath is in his nostrils can never know God because he doesn't exist. He's an illusion. So stop identifying with the illusion. And part of that teaching, remember that direct experience is today's manna. I think that's how you say it. He was also teaching in the same teaching that the words you use to connect with God yesterday do you no good today. He was taught, and it's amazing because I went through this whole new thought space for years. And if I memorized enough of these truth statements, then all my world is going to open up. Like we've all done that to various states. Joel's going, nope, that's yesterday's manna. And if you hung out with Moses at all in the desert, You know, you can only take what you need for today because today, this moment is the only one that exists. And the moment that you save anything, there were a few of us that were just in a meeting where we were looking at you. Why would you want to use the past to create your future? It doesn't even make any sense. Direct experience is today's manna. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right. That's interesting. Yesterday belongs only to the one who believes she can take the reins from God, which right now feels very, very funny. If God is omnipresence, then everything is God always, forever. So at what point is there a me separate from God who can somehow wrestle control? Doesn't make sense. Look for her if you must, the one who searches outside for the love that is always here, always now. Go ahead and look, but only look for her here and now. And smile and rest, and all is well, because all is always well here and now. I rest, I sunk into this message, thinking into this message, right? I looked up after a minute who wrote this beautiful, these words, and it's Kabir. And in Love Poems for God, there's a statement underneath. Um, and I started crying and laughing at the same time because the words that Kafir are known for in this book read: "The fish in the water that is thirsty needs serious professional counseling." And if you were with me last week, I'm going to read what the teaching was based on February 1st, on May 1st, February 1st. I don't get tired of you. Don't grow weary of being compassionate towards me. All this thirst equipment must surely be tired of me. The water jar, the water carrier. I have a thirsty fish in me. It can never find enough of what it's thirsty for. Show me the way to the ocean, just as Meg shows up. Hey, Meg, show me the way to the ocean. Show me the way to the ocean. Break these half measures, these small containers, all this fantasy and grief. Let my house be drowned in the wave that rose last night in the courtyard, hidden in the center of my chest. Joseph fell like the moon into my well. The harvest I expected was washed away, but no matter. A fire has risen above my tombstone hat. I don't want learning or dignity or respectability. I want this music and this dawn and the warmth of your cheek against mine. The grief armies assemble, but I'm not going with them. This is how it always is when I finish a poem. Great silence comes over me, and I wonder why I ever thought to use language. God is omnipresence, always here, everywhere. God is, I am God. We talk those words all the time. And then somehow there is this belief that a water jar, a container was created that holds me separate from omnipresence, always here, always there in this jar. And within this jar, there's suffering and contraction and lack and limitation and a thirsty fish because there ain't no water supposedly in this jar. How is that even possible? Since the only thing that exists is God. So the whole thing is kind of insane. Yeah. But Rumi looks at this thirsty fish and he looks at God and says, "Man, break the jar. I'm done. Just break the water jar." And that's where I am as I sink into this teaching again. Like there are two, what does he say? You are sitting in a wagon being drawn by a horse whose reins you hold. There are two inside of you who can steer. The split mind, right? We've had a lot of conversation about that. The most never hand the reins to me, so they go from place to place the best they can, though rarely happy. And rarely does their whole body laugh, feeling God's poke in the ribs. God is everywhere. God is everything. If you feel tired, dear, my shoulder is soft. I'd be glad to steer. Who is in control of this moment? I will to step back. I surrender the wheel and I sink in. And there's space if anybody like to share anything at all.
It's can y'all hear me? Oh, good. uh, you just got me fired up, Cindy. So I mean, I'm so excited. I feel like Christmas is in the morning. But I used to way more often than I do now. But I have so much just daily. I would say uh, whatever God is, whatever I think God is, whoever I think God is, whatever I think God can be or do, I am. In any concept that I hold of God, in any kind of way, I am. I would say that almost daily. And and you ask the question, how can it be, or that that I learned that thought system is always sitting right there, saying, yeah, but yeah, but if you're a God, why don't you have enough money? Yeah, but if you're a God, why are you 7 pounds overweight? Yeah, but I mean, they could just, yeah, but if you're a God, why this, why that? And I learned I don't have to answer that question. It don't have to make sense. And as long as I stay in not trying to make it make sense, miracles appear all around me in time, in space, uh, in any form. The form doesn't matter. Uh, and I wouldn't even dare try to waste the rest of this time just giving examples. And sometimes it's not your ego. Sometimes, if you're in a marriage or you got close friends or co-workers, they'll try to they'll try to tell you, if you're God, then why is my wife is a great year butter. But I'm learning and I'm beginning to be more bold with her that I'm not trying to make sense to you anymore. You just stay out there and observe and watch what happens. I'm not going to get out of the truth of who I am to fit in with somebody else, even if that someone else is my wife. you know, I'm not going to step out of, and so whether the voice is coming from within or coming from without, that question of, yeah, but if that's true, then why is this? And being able to just sit in that, and if I look crazy to you, I look crazy to you. If I look cuckoo, if I'm one of them cuckoo spiritual people, then so be it. But God is, I am, and so how is it? I don't know how it is. I just know that everything that I think God is, everything that I think God can do, so am I. And I just rest in it and I let it be. And miracles. And I mean, I have baffled doctors that have given me diagnosis. And the only thing that they could say to me is, Well, whatever you're doing, just keep on doing it. I don't know how you got these results, but it's like, and I was just telling my wife yesterday, I said, just because somebody else say something to you about you, you don't have to say it to yourself about you. You can say what you want to say to me about me. You can be a doctor, you can be a whatever. But I don't have to take that and say it to myself about myself. I stay in whatever God is, whoever I think God is, whatever I think God can do, so am I. And thank you for just making that alive again, Cindy.
Mm, thank you, Regis. Is there another voice that would like to speak into this moment? Win, please. Is that you? Or are you just,
I'm
there you
here.
go.
I'm
Yeah,
here. I'm I'm taking everything in, but I'm having a little trouble with my uh, computer. But it's probably me and not my computer. I heard a lot of good stuff this morning. Thank you.
I'm inspired to read Kabir again. Slow, maybe even twice in the 3 minutes we have left. Um, Only the ego thought system gets bored. Did you know that? So I'm also just, while I do that, there's this awareness game I've been playing a lot. So you can let go of the actual words if you're inspired and instead just feel the energy hit this sense of a separate you as I speak. Such an interesting experience. And what I've noticed so far is that when I do that and others are speaking or teaching, I could feel the energy hit around here and then it sort of stops. But then the inside sort of vibrates and shifts and changes. I don't know what that means, but have fun with it. You are sitting in a wagon being drawn by a horse whose reins you hold. There are two inside of you who can steer. The most never hand the reins to me, so they go from place to place the best they can, though rarely happy. And rarely does their whole body laugh, feeling God's poke in the ribs. If you feel tired, dear, my shoulder is soft. I'd be glad to steer a while. And just as I surrender the mic, this last thought came up, you know, and rarely does their whole body laugh, feeling God's poke in the ribs. Now remember again that God is omnipresence everywhere, always. And this particular visual shows a me with ribs and God poking at it and a sense of not being aware of that exchange. Where is God not exactly? And you find a space in omnipresence where God isn't. My recommendation, if you do, when you look for that, go ahead and look for that from where God is. And with that, I surrender the mic.